Hello, and welcome to Badger Talk Live Quick Picks, which brings exciting happenings, resources, and talent from your UW flagship campus to the people of Wisconsin and beyond. I'm Luna Algate, an early learning and education engagement specialist with PBS Wisconsin Education. At PBS Wisconsin Education, curiosity powers our core values, which include a love of learning that unites across differences, a deep respect for the educators and community members who are making a difference every day, and a commitment to ensuring that high-quality educational media resources and services are free to use and available to all.
And I'm David Baffa, an education producer at PBS Wisconsin Education. One of the newest additions to PBS Wisconsin Education's Wisconsin Biographies collection centers on the story of Mahmoud Othman Atta, who built the first mosque in the Milwaukee area open to all. This collection is designed for 3rd through 6th grade classrooms. Muna and I were both involved in the making of our latest Wisconsin bio, and we're very excited to tell you more about it with our special guest.
Today, we are pleased to introduce Janan Najeeb, a proud Palestinian American Muslim, an alumna of UW-Milwaukee, and the founding member and president of the Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition. In addition, she is an interfaith leader, chairing the Committee for Interfaith Understanding of the Interfaith Conference of Greater Milwaukee, and is the first Muslim and non-clergy to lead the Religious Leaders Caucus for MICAH in its 35-year history. She is the first Muslim to offer an opening prayer at the Wisconsin State Legislature.
Janan is also the author of numerous articles, opinion pieces, and book chapters, including a chapter in Interfaith Engagement in Milwaukee, A Brief History of Christian-Muslim Dialogue. She is the recipient of countless awards, including the Wisconsin Institute for Peace and Conflict Studies Dick Ringler Distinguished Peace Educator Award, Interfaith Conference of Greater Milwaukee Award for Social Justice and Activism, and in 2022, Rotary Person of the Year Award. Last but not least, Janan is the daughter of Mahmoud Othman Atta, and she served as a cultural advisor for the Wisconsin Biographies project that we'll be discussing today. Janan, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me.
To get us started, can you tell us more about your father and why his story is helpful for Wisconsin's school children to learn about?
Yes, thank you so much. I really loved being part of this project, and especially sharing about my father, who was really important, I think, in my life and the life of all of my siblings, as well as our community here. My father's story is really an immigrant story. It's the American story. It's also the story of a young man, a teenager, coming to a new land, coming to a new country, building a home. It's important for school children because how does a teenager come to another country where, English is not their language in this case, where they have a whole different culture, where they really don't have the support of many family members. My grandfather was here, but still it's not the same as having your entire family and relatives, etc. It's also an opportunity for children to know what are those tools and those ingredients that are really required for you to build a new home. It's also important because it opens up a door for people to understand Palestine, one of 22 Arab countries. And so to know that there's a part of the world that's called, that are where they speak Arabic, where they have a different culture, for example. And it's also educational to learn about Islam, the building of a mosque, the second largest religion in the world, but it's still a very small minority here in the United States. And so many people, particularly in more rural areas, they don't have access to a mosque. They don't know what happens in a mosque. They don't know why it's so relevant to people, and how it really connects to their own faith. So for many reasons, it was such a beautiful story to tell.
So you touched on this a little, but I wonder if you could expand. In producing this story, the animated story of your father's life and his many accomplishments, Why was it so important to focus specifically on his work establishing what is Milwaukee's first mosque that was open to everyone, to all Muslims?
I think it was important and unique because whereas, we've told and many times people have read maybe about the stories of immigration, of immigrants, the building of a mosque is something unique, and it's something that's a little bit different. And for practicing Muslims, if you have a mosque, you have really the basis to build a new home. And so to be able to let people understand how within different traditions there are certain things that are very very important to their lives, and will help them to establish themselves, to establish their families, and also to help find a place for the rest of the Muslim community that was growing at that time as well. So it was important for a variety of reasons.
Even after all the work that people like your father have done all across the country, so much of Islam is still misunderstood or misrepresented, and that's particularly true in the media. What are some of the ways that you help push back against the negative stereotypes of Palestinians and Muslims?
Well, that's really been a lot of our life work, because that's also what my father used to do, and my parents. My parents were part of the first Muslim Christian dialogue in the United States. It happened here in Milwaukee. And so we also got interested in really helping people to understand who we are, because even prior to 9/11, which in many people's minds is a time when Islamophobia kind of became rampant, but there was a lot of kind of lack of knowledge even prior to that. Growing up in school in the United States, many of my teachers didn't have a clue as to what Islam was, and how and what the relationship was to other faiths. And so, but over the past couple of decades, we've seen, Islamophobia on the rise, different types of racism. And so we really have found that most of the time when there is racism, a lot of times it's really related to that fear of not knowing the other. It's not always because people have had any real experience. On the contrary, most of the time it's because people didn't have any experience with people of that culture or people of that faith. And so one of the things that I have really made my life's work, in fact, leaving my science field behind, is to create these opportunities for dialogue and understanding. We've built here at our center, we have a lending library, we have book clubs, we do a lot of lectures and talks and interactions. We create opportunities. We go into churches and to different clubs and groups where we have dialogue opportunities in order to try and help people to understand who the Muslim community really is. And when you put it also in context of Islam being an Abrahamic faith, connected to Christianity, connected to Judaism, sharing the concept of a monotheistic God, sharing a lot of the moral code and a sense of who the prophets are, and a lot of similarities. As a Palestinian, it's always an opportunity for me to talk about, for example, the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, and the inscriptions of the Quran that are around the Dome of the Rock are actually verses from the Quran that relate the story of Mary, or Maryam, the mother of Jesus. And so talking about the fact that, throughout history, Islam has this close connection because we believe we're part of the same tradition. And so when we deal with Islamophobia, we really deal with it in the context that most fear is because of lack of knowledge. And so we want to create those opportunities for people to really get to know Muslims better and to have positive experiences. And as a lot of research has shown, especially some of the Pew Research studies, for example, is that the more interaction you have with a group, the more positive it tends to be, and the more the impact and the changing of ideas as well.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the Muslim community in Wisconsin and how it has grown or changed over the years?
Growing up in Milwaukee and when growing up as one of only a handful of Muslim families in the Milwaukee area, of course, there were, the what were known at that time as the Black Muslims, and these are individuals that had been here for generations. But for many of the predominantly immigrant Muslims, that we were just a very, very small community. And so I remember as a child, when we would have, for example, our prayer service for the holidays, and we didn't have a mosque at that time until much later. I was in college when we actually bought that first mosque. So what would happen is we would have these prayer services and holiday services, and there would be about 150, 200 people, and I was probably in middle school at that time. Now it's amazing because we have within the city of Milwaukee, I believe it's the greater Milwaukee area alone, probably has 9 mosques. We have several schools, a number of schools, the largest being Salam School, which is spread out on 2 campuses and has over 1,000 students. And when we have, for example, our prayer services for the holidays in particular, you're talking about having 15, 20,000 people that are showing up for prayer services. And it's done many times. If it's done at the mosques, it's done in multiple sessions in order to accommodate. And then we usually also reserve space downtown, a big convention hall as well. And even in the area where I'm located right now, where the Islamic Resource Center is located, I can look outside my window and see entire little squares where all of the shops are maybe halal restaurants and grocery stores and barber shops and all types of businesses. So you've got just a growing community now. And what's unique about the Muslim community is that it is probably the most diverse religious community in the United States. So we have a tremendous amount of diversity. And this was the case even when my father, was alive and early in the years when they were first starting the mosque. One of the key elements of the community was specifically the diversity. I still remember to this day that we had friends that were of Turkish background and friends of Pakistani background and of Indian background and of Indonesian background. And we had, individuals that were from the former, now it's a former Yugoslavia, but was Yugoslavia at the time. And so having such a diversity also enriches the experiences that people have as well.
Great. Janan, thanks so much for joining us today. And also thanks to everyone who tuned in. Feel free at this point to post any comments or questions you have in the chat. I also encourage everyone to check out the entire collection of People Making History in the Wisconsin Biographies collection, and check out the rest of our award-winning classroom media at pbswisconsineducation.org. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for watching this Badger Talks live event produced by the University of Wisconsin-Madison through UW Connects Outreach and the Office of State Relations. Follow us on Facebook and YouTube to see the library of past recorded talks. Please visit badgertalks.wisc.edu to see the schedule of upcoming talks, sign up for the Badger Talks email list, and search the roster of over 400 UW experts who are available to give talks on important issues in your Wisconsin community.